8th meeting of the Lake County Board of Commissioners. Would all those who are willing and able please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Grant us, O Lord, light to our understanding, prudence in our investigating, foresight in our planning, sincerity in our deliberating, the grace to follow truth in our judgment. Help us to be moved in our decision, neither by fear nor by self-interest, and to do our work faithfully. May we respect the authority vested in us, for thou art the source of all authority. And may we use our directives for the common good, and for thy honor and glory. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Tyler.
Here.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Present.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Here. All right, we have before us the meeting minutes of the regular meeting of September 8, 2022. Do we have a motion to approve same, waiving the reading thereof?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Tyler.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. All right, this brings us to our first public comment portion. We have some colleagues from our townships here. The Township Association has a presentation for the board. So the floor is yours.
Good morning.
Thank you. And if a name and organization you're representing and yada, 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 and all that good stuff. You wear so many hats, this could cause some neck injuries, so good morning.
I'm Norfolk, Concord Township Trustee. Address is 9656 Executive Court in Concord. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Lake County Township Association,
I would like to thank the Board of County Commissioners for the opportunity to speak this morning. As a veteran law enforcement officer for nearly 30 years, serving now in a dual role as an elected official and chief of police, I've come to understand and recognize how important safety services are for the health, vitality, and development of a stable community. The Lake County Township Association would like to thank the Board of County Commissioners and the Lake County Clerk of Courts for their support in assisting the townships with grant funding to add additional law enforcement officers to the Township Patrol Services through the Sheriff's Office. The LCTA is committed to the safety of our communities and over the years have added additional deputies to township patrols. These additional resources have been funded through levy initiatives and other financial streams. We also understand that before the end of this current grant through the county, some townships may need to take measures to sustain the financial requirements needed to retain these officers after the assistance from the county ceases. The townships are prepared to take these necessary steps. However, there's still work to be done to bolster the Sheriff's Office Patrol Division to the numbers needed to provide adequate emergency law enforcement services to our communities. Now is the time to make additional investments in our law enforcement. As each year goes by, the industry is confronted with additional challenges that stress and strain our first responders. As an insider with the Sheriff's Office for the first 25 years of my career, I have a keen understanding as to what resources are needed to effectively respond to emergencies the sheriff's required to perform under the Ohio Revised Code. Approximately 12 years ago, when the Sheriff's Office budget was reduced and the Patrol Division was substantially impacted by these reductions, I was involved in some of the discussions that took place to determine what actual number of deputies were needed to respond to emergencies with the critical infrastructure we have within the county. The sheriff at that time indicated that a minimum of 15 deputies were needed and should be funded by the county commissioners to adequately respond to emergencies, especially with the critical infrastructure of the Perry Nuclear Power Plant, to which the Sheriff's Office is the primary first responder to. The commissioners argued that no more than 10 would be funded by the county. Eventually, the Board of County Commissioners funded 12 county-funded emergency deputies, with the understanding that if the townships wanted patrols, they would need to fund additional resources, which the townships have done and grown over the past several years since this initial plan was set into motion. Unfortunately, since the initial 12 deputies were funded by the county commissioners several years ago, this number has not grown despite the need for additional emergency deputies. The shortage of emergency deputies places damaging strain and stress on the support of patrol deputies, which is evident by increases over the past year in Part 1 and Part 2 crimes, and also mutual aid and multiple officer response calls for service. As we can see within the profession of law enforcement at a national level, the strain on inadequately staffed law enforcement agencies can exacerbate the morale of the agency and lead to undue stress, which leads to strains on the health and wellness of our first responders. There's a tidal wave coming within this industry which will challenge all of us to hire, retain, and develop capable first responders to ensure we as elected officials do what we need to do to ensure the safety of our communities. The LCTA has received concerns from our constituents, and we have an obligation to have constructive discussion on the issue, which is of great importance. Our goal in reaching out today to this Board of Commissioners is that we believe the time is now to work on additional law enforcement funding for emergency deputies. This board has publicly expressed its deep support for law enforcement, and we believe that this urgency warrants responsible and constructive discussion. The LCTA would therefore respectfully request that the Commissioners hold a public hearing and/or a special meeting, since this topic most realistically will require lengthy discussion. We collectively believe that the LCTA and the Board of Commissioners should, for the benefit of our communities, work together and collaborate on a plan to sustain our safety forces into the future and keep our communities safe. Thank you. I would like to have Morgan McIntosh briefly discuss and provide a visual perspective detailing some of the data relevant to this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Morgan McIntosh, 79004 Forest Valley Lane in Concord Township. I'm here as a Concord Township trustee, but also as the president of the Lake County Township Association. I do want to echo Trustee Dondorfer's gratefulness for the support we've received from the commissioners and from the Clerk of Court's office for the support that we have. It was definitely needed. It actually came at a point where we had been talking about that as a topic in Concord Township before you approached us with this. So it's been a great help. What I do want to do is take you through the presentation that we provided you, just a few things with respect to the townships and some stuff that we've been looking at as an organization. So wanted to take a minute just to cover, and I'm not going to read this because you all can get through everything, but I wanted to highlight a few particular high points with respect to township government that make it maybe different than some of the entities in Lake County that we deal with. And we're a grassroots statutory government based in ORC, but we're more of a limited government model, and the township government structure is tended to, and across the state gets a lot of support from the counties. And mostly that is that we don't levy income taxes and sales tax, so we don't have that revenue. We're funded basically on property taxes and levies. So there's a lot of county services that we would rely on. However, in Lake County, a number of our communities have gone ahead and contracted for some of those services to supplement because we realize the demands require such. So in Lake County, a lot of the 3 of 5 of the townships contract for their own engineering services, and 3 of the 5 townships contract independently with the Sheriff's Department, and Madison Township does provide their own law enforcement choice that they made. And I think it's something that's important to understand is that the tax dollars often, I work in Willoughby and live in Concord Township, so Willoughby keeps that municipal tax. So the municipalities are actually benefiting by people that work in a city and live in a township. Moving on to talk about townships in Lake County, in the last 20 years, we've seen a lot of growth in the townships. I think when you take a look at some of the things with respect to the history of how townships have functioned within the county, you've seen a lot of dynamics. Townships, as you can see, made a pretty rapid growth from 2000 to 2010 and continue that upward trend to the point now where, based on the current census, the townships represent about 23% of the total county population. And just with respect to law enforcement, we wanted to cover a few things as far as how we see the obligation or understand our role in policing our communities. And we've cited some case law. The Ohio Supreme Court has determined that the obligation of the county or the Sheriff's Department is to preserve the public peace. 11th District Court of Appeals has upheld that and added some color to that conversation that basically delineated the fact that proactive patrolling in communities and crime prevention programs wouldn't be mandatory. And frankly, that's where the LCTA and our communities within the townships within Lake County agree, and why we've willingly come forward and worked with the Sheriff's Department providing some of those services or contracting out of our budgets for that, because we realize that it's important. Moving on to interpretations, just what we want to have a dialogue about is understanding from the county perspective, the Sheriff's Department and the townships, where's that line between proactive patrol and responding to emergencies, because we would like to have an ongoing dialogue about that, because it's clear that there is an obligation for the county or the Sheriff's Department to respond to emergencies within the county in combination with the townships who have provided funding for proactive patrol. And one of the reasons we think this is a forefront issue right now is when we took a look at call responses, which was one of the things we looked at recently, we didn't see anything that was staggering. We saw mild increases year over year, and thought, well, that really coincides with population growth. But we took some time to get into the details of it a little bit, and did notice that we've seen a significant statistical crime increase within the townships. Both Part 1 and Part 2 crimes have increased pretty dramatically the last 2 years. And I know that as we're looking at our ARPA funds, that's an important aspect with that. So that's how we zeroed on it and took a look at some of the things that we've seen here. And you can see that over the last, if you take pre-pandemic and then to where we are today, we've seen some pretty staggering increases within our communities, and we're getting these concerns from our residents. So it's why we've engaged in this conversation, and it's why we desire to engage with the Board of Commissioners. Just kind of taking a look at things as far as law enforcement and the cost of it goes. As I said, we've seen the cost of law enforcement in our communities increase dramatically. We've come forward, we're prepared to continue to do that, but we'll talk long-term what the plans are, or how we can take a look at how that's allocated. And we've just broken down the allocations over the last couple of years as far as how things are looking, how things will look when the grant expires. And you can see, and working within the LCTA, we wanted to show what the collective spend of law enforcement on behalf of townships is. And again, some of those decisions are willing decisions as far as the communities to go ahead and take that cost on, either at 100% or sharing with the Sheriff's Department in those costs. And just for your background, in the appendix, we did provide a lot of the information and data that we took a look at. Just wanted you to be able to have that. And we would like to just have the opportunity to sit down at a later time and discuss the issue in depth. As Trustee Dondorfer mentioned, we are all proceeding into our budgets for next year and taking a look at our planning, and we just felt like now is a good time to at least introduce the topic and come to you and say we'd like to get in front of it and have a constructive conversation going forward as far as how we can work together on this issue. And with that, I'd just like to thank you for your time this morning, and thank you for your support of our communities.
Excellent. Thank you. I truly appreciate your recognizing this Board of Commissioners as taking public safety very seriously. That's very kind of you to say that, and I would like to compliment the Township Association, the two gentlemen who spoke today, both trusted voices among your own organization and the community in general. Carl Dondorfer, having served as a captain with the Sheriff's Department, instant credibility. Serving as a chief of police, instant credibility. And applying those lessons learned to your being a trustee. Well done. Morgan, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've also served in law enforcement, so you get it. You've been boots on the ground as well. Two very appropriate people to be bringing this issue forward. And for that, I personally say thank you, and I believe my colleagues would agree with that. I think it's fair to say that, in working with our County Commissioners Association of Ohio, Lake County is one of the more proactive counties, and thank you for recognizing that we have done things above and beyond. Our Clerk of Courts, Faith Andrews, when approached with the vision of, hey, there are no grants out there, but we can do one of our own, she got it. She didn't ask questions that were unreasonable, and she worked with us on the pilot project as we worked with our friends in Painesville Township, and Perry Township was the first adopter. That was very important. She took it from a pilot project with us to an application of actually making it happen, and that was unprecedented. We got a lot of calls on that from the County Commissioners Association of, what are you guys doing? What else, how can we copy that? I don't know that anybody else has, but I think that shows that there's a true collegial relationship between this board and the Township Trustee Association, as well as mayors and managers. And I would dare say that if we are going to have a meeting, which I think we should have a joint meeting with mayors and managers, Trustees Association, this board. Let's bring all the people who have the skill sets together and talk. One of the foundational efforts recently was bringing on board Lexipol. That's a fantastic, first in the state of Ohio, possibly the nation, where we have policies that are going to be gauged against case law, state statute, best practices, all allowed to be tailored to the needs of the community. Unprecedented. It's a great foundation to build on. You'd mentioned, years ago there was a discussion about 15 deputies to support the requirements, and you're mentioning currently 12, but just to be, and I believe our sheriff can address this in more detail than I can, but we actually have 18 deputies that are on the books. And Sheriff, if you want to come on up, I know we have 12 deputies, 6 detectives, and those 6 detectives are a force multiplier. They keep the deputies that are on the streets, just that, on the streets. They're not sitting in a courtroom, they're not going through the process, they do the professional work that keeps the deputies in the community doing their activities. But Sheriff, do you want to expand on some of this, sir?
No.
Oh, well, in that case.
I guess first of all, I'd like to thank both the commissioners in the townships for taking law enforcement seriously and making hard decisions in terms of investment of resources. As sheriff, I am concerned about the future not only of the townships, but of the county itself. And part of it is having the resources to have knowledgeable and skilled team members in all 3 facets of the criminal justice system. And we've spoke about this. Criminals, as I have seen throughout my career, are opportunity seekers. They look for weaknesses, find them quickly, and take great advantage of those weaknesses. I see around the United States, in our cities, where criminals see weakness in the justice system, weakness in prosecutors, weakness in law enforcement, as a go-ahead to commit crime. Whether that's murder or rape, or that's burglaries, or that's carjackings, there just seems to be a willingness in criminality to find those weaknesses and exploit them. One of the strengths of Lake County has been a strong justice system, a strong prosecutors, a strong law enforcement that has put up that shield to Lake County residents. With COVID, the drop in the employment pool of resources, the negative impact of the media against law enforcement and people in the criminal justice system, our experience is we don't find people wanting to get into this field. Now, there's some people that want to get into this field, we don't want them. They don't have the skills, they don't have the personalities for that. And when you lower your standards, you bring in individuals who can create huge problems for that system. As I have said earlier, there are 3 facets to safety and security in Lake County. That is strong law enforcement on the street. If people don't believe there are good police officers on the street, if they don't see law enforcement on the street, they see a weakness and they'll invade that. If they see that there is not strong prosecutors, that are willing to make cases, who have the skills. It's not just having a position filled. It's having knowledgeable people in those areas who know the law, who know the justice system, who know how to fairly prosecute cases. Unless you have those individuals at that level, that's a weakness that lets crime into the county. Unless you have a strong judiciary, and a strong judiciary is not just judges, but it's their staffs, of their attorneys and their staffs. The problem is no one wants to get in there. There is a cost that is out there. And I believe today we have to sit down and look at a way to properly fund our criminal justice system, whether that's in our townships, whether that's across our county, a properly not only staffed and skilled jail, but as well a facility that enables us to do all the facets of sanctions through a court. I believe it's important, not only at the township levels, but you suggested with the mayors and managers, but as the Lake County Commissioners, I certainly, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Colson, but I'm willing as the sheriff, and I'm sure he is as the prosecutor, to sit down and participate in this process. Lake County has 250,000 people. 250,000 people. It is the seventh, I'm not a good, well, it's about seventh wealthiest county of all 88 counties. We have to first of all sit down with our residents and educate what our situation is. Present it to them. And I've said this before, people are willing to invest $1,000 in a cell phone every 2 years. Investing in criminal justice makes a safe community that brings in business, that brings in people who are willing to raise families and grow this county. If this is not a safe county, if this is an open border for crime, that's problematic for all of our citizens. So thank you.
Well said, Sheriff. In anticipation of some other activities that we're engaged in that's, I believe, directly applicable here, been working closely with our prosecutor's office. And one of the things, I'm a numbers guy. I wanted to know, what are the numbers? And one of the questions asked of our prosecutor's office, if they kindly gathered the data, felony defendant demographics by county of resident. In 2018, non-Lake County residents engaged by the prosecutor's office, 48.57%. 2019, this was the low water mark, 40.96%. 2020, 43.66%. 2021, 48.88%. And year to date in 2022, 46.47%. These numbers are staggering. Lake County residents are being victimized twice. Once as direct victims of crime, but they're also being victimized because we have to pay for this in order to hold people accountable as they're charged with paying their debts to society. The bad guys, Lake County residents, have to pick up that tab as well. We as a community are blessed to have such elected officials that are so engaged and that are true servants. Again, I say thank you. Our public safety forces are top notch, and they are very much sought by other communities. We have some of the best public safety forces out there. And they are being courted and recruited by other communities. And I think that's a testament, though, to the quality of the leadership, the training, and the quality of the men and women who serve in those capacities. Our prosecutor's office, career, I have to emphasize that. And I believe our prosecutor can expand upon this, and I hope he does. That's a hint, sir. Come on up. We have career prosecutors. there's a great deal of comfort in knowing that the officers that are engaging the criminals on the streets are going to have competent prosecutors that are part of our justice system. Sir?
Thank you. You are correct, Commissioner. And when I first became the county prosecutor, I don't know, was it 28 years ago? Something like that. My objective was to try to create a career prosecutor office. In the past, we would have prosecutors that would come and they would learn how to try cases and learn how to be good prosecutors, and then they would leave because the prosecutor salaries were so low, and they were going to go either into private practice or go somewhere else that paid them more money, like the federal system. And I thought, what a waste to train all of these people, because it takes a minimum of 3 years, but more like 5 years for somebody out of law school to train and learn and become a very effective prosecutor. They can try the difficult cases, the complex cases, the cases that have a lot of scientific evidence. Excuse me. And to lose them after a few years, after they're trained, after they can go out and use those skills and get more money, hurts the county. And so I've wanted to create a career prosecutor program. And the only way you can do that is for the prosecutors to realize that the county will be there for them. It won't be just the normal raises every year that you get to keep up with inflation. It will be that they can get promotions. When they start handling more difficult cases, they can get paid more. Excuse me, I'm in trouble with my throat. And that there is a career objective for them, that they can feel that when they are at their nearing the end of their career, they are receiving a salary that would be commensurate with all of their experience. Now, everybody knows if you're going to be a prosecutor, you're never going to make what you make in private practice. We're not talking about that. But we are talking about sufficient compensation so that they can build a family, can buy their home and pay their mortgage, and can send their children to college. And that's what we really want to do. That's what I've been wanting to do. And I know the commissioners have recently been working with me on that. And I gave a long presentation about that a few weeks ago. So I don't need to go into that. But it is important. It is very important that we do that. And one of the things that we have to really look at is the loan forgiveness policy. Almost all of my prosecutors, when they get out of law school, have huge debt. Some of them $200,000 worth of student loan debt, and that's a mortgage payment. And but they come to the prosecutor's office because they like it, but they also know that after 10 years of working in a prosecutor's office, that debt will be forgiven. But once that debt's forgiven, then they no longer have that impetus to stay with the prosecutor's office. So we need to give them some impetus to stay beyond that point of time. We need to give them some impetus that they want to, because they enjoy being prosecutors. I like to say this, and in fact I have a hat on my wall, a white cowboy hat on my wall. I like to say that the prosecutors are the good guys. We're the guys in the white hat. Because it's our job to make sure justice is done. And when I say justice is done, that means it's our job to protect the innocent just as aggressively as we protect the guilty. And that's what the Supreme Court says. The Supreme Court that writes the rules for all lawyers says all lawyers have to represent their client zealously and assert their client's interest, except prosecutors. It says prosecutors are ministers of justice. And that's what we work very hard at in our office, to make sure we're always doing what's right in every case. And that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. In fact, I was talking to one of my assistant prosecutors this morning. He just got back late last night. We got a murder case coming up. He's been working very hard. He's been working months on this murder case. And it's a bad case. It's one of these shootings that happened in the city of Painesville. We have many like this, but it was a cold-blooded murder. And he needed to go down to talk to the county coroner, who used to work in Cuyahoga County, now works down to the coroner's office in Columbus. And so he had to take his time and leave after work last night, drive down there, set up a meeting with that deputy coroner to prepare him for trial, and then come back tonight. And he does it, and he does it willingly, and they're excited about doing it because they know they're doing the right thing. But he doesn't get paid any extra for that. He just does it because that's part of his job. And that's the kind of people we have, and that's the kind of people we need to keep. And so having career prosecutors is really important, and for Lake County. And I know we've been in discussions with you about that, and you've promised more discussions, and I look forward to that. But I think we really need to focus on Lake County because we do have a lot of crime that is committed by out-of-county residents, and we do need to make sure that we're tough on crime and stay tough on crime, and you can only do that through experience and keeping the people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think it's fair to say that I trust my colleagues would agree that we need to set up a special meeting, and this cannot be a one-off. We need to do a series of discussions, open, candid. At the end of the day, we do need to address the community concerns. We do need to educate each other and work on managing expectations. We need to educate our community as how we can be partners. And that means more than just see something, say something. There's an awful lot here. And we really also need to build on the relationships that allowed Lake County to prevail in the opioid litigation that recently saw a successful verdict as far as the pharmacies. That was no accident that Lake County was chosen to represent the nation. It's because we can work together. And I think this is a tremendous opportunity that we need to take advantage of. And again, I commend you for taking the initiative to come here today. And again, to choose such exceptional and exemplary spokespeople. I don't know what more I can add to this. Gentlemen, anything you want to add?
Mr. President,
Sir.
I'd just like to follow along the sentiment of our sheriff that so much of the recruitment problem we see now in police departments and sheriff's offices, not just here but across the country, is because for a brief moment some very irresponsible politicians decided to demonize our police and law enforcement. And I'm proud that Lake County rejected that hard and immediately when people tried to blame our police for the greater problems of society, when in reality they've chosen to take on one of the most difficult and dangerous jobs, one of the most important jobs, without which Lake County, without which Ohio, without which society could not function. So I want to thank our current police and law enforcement, like Trustee and Chief of Police Carl Dondorfer, our sheriff, and those who are representing him here today, as well as those who served in the past, like President John Hamercheck and Trustee Morgan McIntosh, because you have made great sacrifices to keep our community safe. And it is never easy when we're dealing with national trends. We're a little county in a big world. But we have to do our best as a community to be the best. We may not be able to outrun the bear, but we can do better than most communities and still be a beacon for the right way to do things. It's why Lake County is growing so quickly. I know that Concord is very proud that they're one of the 3 fastest growing communities in Lake County, and we're very proud that Lake County as a whole is 1 out of 3 counties in Ohio, in fact 1 out of 3 counties in the United States that's still growing, not just with business but population according to the last census. And that's because to this point we have done a remarkable job in difficult times of keeping our community safe because we have come together. We're not perfect, but everyone in this room cares deeply about law enforcement, cares deeply about keeping our community safe. And you see a conversation like this here because we're all on the same page. We have some disagreements from time to time about how to get there, but thank God we never disagree on where we're going together. And we will always support the police. We will always support law enforcement in Lake County. And I think that sentiment alone is one of the reasons why we have such great law enforcement. They know we appreciate them, they know we're grateful to them, and they know that this is a wonderful home for them to work and keep their community safe, and we will make sure it always remains that way.
Well said, sir. Commissioner Tyler?
Yeah, I believe that I can speak for all 3 of us when I say that there's individual support as well as collective support for Lake County law enforcement in the various levels and departments. And thank you, Carl and Morgan, for coming today to speak before us. Nice to see Carl, my neighboring chief, and Morgan, who I've known as long as anyone in the room. So it's good to hear from you both. And I appreciate seeing the support from your fellow township trustees, administrators. So it is important to you all, as it is to us, and obviously the sheriff and the prosecutor. And we've had a lot of discussions with the prosecutor over a few issues recently, and we've had many discussions with the sheriff with regard to the jail and the safety center. So the timing is really good for this discussion. I certainly support this discussion, further discussions going forward. It is important to all of us to have a safe county to live and work. It's important to me, important to my family. So I think there's no better time than now to start these discussions.
Well said, sir. And I believe also for the benefit of the meeting minutes, that you should also reflect on those who are watching but can't see our audience. Half of our room right now has township trustees, township administrators, so very well represented. So I think, again, as a board, we keep referring to our audience, but I don't think the meeting minutes or the camera is going to say who all is here. Half this room has representatives from our townships in it. And that's, again, very encouraging to see that level of engagement. Sheriff, is there anything you wanted to add, sir?
I guess I didn't answer the initial question that you asked. I just want to make it clear in terms of numbers. Yes, there are 12 deputies. There are 6 detectives that help keep deputies on the road rather than sitting at a trial bench. However, the changes in law enforcement the past 5 years, dramatic changes. I don't believe the Lake County Sheriff's Office is sufficiently staffed. I am very concerned about the safety of the deputies on the street, responding to calls. There are, across Lake County, there are more guns being taken off the street today than ever before. When I first started, a gun call on the radio brought everybody from Lake County. Today it's like, well, that call will hold for the other gun call. We're faced with a lot more guns, a lot more violence, the weaponry is no longer a revolver, it's a semi-automatic rifle. I am concerned as sheriff, as each chief is, for their police officers on the street, that we don't have enough staffing. You look at a township that we're associated with, but we don't patrol. Madison Township is a huge township. I believe one of the largest townships.
Indeed.
And they have 2 people on the street responding to calls. It is a safety issue for police officers. It's a safety officer for police officers in our cities, in our villages, and in our townships. And I believe we need to look at it and make decisions to make significant investments in not only increasing law enforcement, but marketing to bring in good talent, and say, if you stay here, we're not promising you're going to be the best paid in Ohio. We're going to give you a good culture in our organizations, and we are going to properly compensate you so that you stay here for your career, so we continue to have informed and skilled people working for us. Thank you.
Well said, sir. Perhaps while you're in the area, I'm going to use Madison Township as an example, and that's using actually I'm most familiar. Mutual aid. Most people don't realize Madison Township, Madison Village work closely together, but our Lake County Metro Parks, their officers, rangers, if you will, Sheriff's Department, North Perry, Perry Village, they all work together. And again, I'm just using that as an example because I'm most familiar with it. It takes place in other parts of the county. But that's something we need to educate the community. It's kind of like our fire departments. No one fire department can handle all threats. But it is so important because some people reading the meeting minutes or maybe watching this meeting are wondering, well, why do you want to engage mayors and managers? It's because law enforcement is a justice system. It's part of the system, and we all need to work together. Sheriff, anything you could add to that?
I agree. It is investing across the county in our training. That's one of the things the commissioners did in investing in our training center that are remodeling, constructing, that will be used by all law enforcement. It's making those investments that will make Lake County safe.
Thank you, sir. All right, well, tremendous opportunity. One moment, sir. I just want to make sure we close this out. Gentlemen, anything you want to add on this subject? Again, we thank you so much for your attendance. I'm sure those listening are going to hear the clamor here of everybody getting on their starter blocks and leaving. You're more than welcome to sit through the entire meeting, but I'm sure you guys sit through enough of it. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner. You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're very welcome, sir. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you. Okay, John, the floor is yours, sir. Make it good now. That's a hard act to follow.
I'll do my best. John Music, 45 Coventry Drive, Painesville Township. I just want to thank the commissioners and my township trustees. I was at the trustee meeting last night, and you know me, I always speak, and I'm going to be at the Riverside School Board meeting tonight, and I'll speak there also. And the thing, I just want to thank my trustees and the commissioners and the sheriff. As I've said, as everybody knows, I'm 100% behind law enforcement. Without law enforcement and our military, we do not have a country. And what is a priority to that? And the thing about it is, we have a great sheriff, we have a great prosecutor, and we have a great court system here. If any one of those entities fail, we no longer have law enforcement. Any one of them. And we're very fortunate here. So therefore, we've got to do what we've got to do. We've got to find a way to do it, because there is no other choice. We cannot have it. So all I am saying is, you know, just like I want to thank the sheriff, and like I said, I talk about all this at every meeting, that, you know, we now are going to have more deputies at Riverside. Sadly, that's true. I think just about everybody in this room, I don't know if they had deputies in their high school when they went to schools. I know I didn't. And it's sad. What has happened? Our world has changed. And in my opinion, not for the better. And the thing about it is, without law enforcement or our military, we no longer will have a country. And like I said, thanks to all our law enforcement in our county, in our state, and in our country. Without them, we will have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Sir, welcome.
Gabe Chiccanetti, 370 Barrington Ridge, Painesville Township. I just wanted to thank the sheriff for coming out and saying what we've all been saying for years now, is that the sheriff's department is understaffed for responding to emergencies. The question that I think needs to be stated, and that you guys need to hear, is that if Painesville Township, Concord Township, Perry Township remove their funding for road patrols, the question that needs to be asked, would the sheriff have enough deputies funded by Lake County Commissioner's Office to respond to emergencies? And the answer to that is no. And that's a statutory requirement by the Ohio Revised Code. So if we are to remove the funding that we pay for road deputies, he is understaffed. Yes, I know he has 6 detectives, 12 road patrol, but the 12 road patrol is what's on the road responding to emergencies. If we remove our funding, he is even more understaffed to respond to emergencies. So I want to thank him and commend him for saying that and letting you guys know that he is understaffed to respond to emergencies. And that is a statutory requirement of the sheriff's office funded by the commissioner's office. So again, if the townships remove their funding for road patrol, does the sheriff have enough deputies to respond to emergencies and keep the peace? That's the question that I think needs to be asked, and that's the answer that I think will give us what we need to do moving forward for our townships, especially Painesville Township, Concord Township, and Perry Township, which contribute time after time after time to help pick up the slack of that lack of deputies funded by the county. So that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, sir. And No. I am going to look to our prosecutor and to our sheriff, and if I say anything incorrect, I expect you to correct me. I'm going to compare and contrast Lake County with Ashtabula County. Ashtabula County, for a period of time, a significant period of time, had one deputy available to respond to emergencies. We are meeting our statutory requirements. Anything to the contrary is incorrect. Do we want to be among the best, if not the best? Absolutely. I do not wish to, and I'm going to use the word conflate, because I've learned that word from my colleague. Let us not conflate the ambition of being the best with meeting our obligations. We intend to be among the best, if not the best. And for that, I hope we can all agree. Any inference or insinuation that we are not meeting our legal obligations is patently wrong. I want to be abundantly clear on that point. We are not going to leave this meeting with any belief that we are not meeting our legal obligations. I want to be abundantly clear on that. Sheriff, legal, have I said anything that is not correct? Thank you, gentlemen. Let the record show same. Now, Mr. Massey, you may have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Brian Massey, 8196 Rainbow Drive, lobbyist for citizens. Although I certainly agree that we need law enforcement, we need good prosecutors, but I want to remind the commissioners, as it seems like we're going to have to ask the people of Lake County to pony up some more money. What we have to be very careful of, I remember I've done some research on the crime lab. What we can't have is we can't have a crime lab that has $1.6 million in excess revenue over their expenses. They've accumulated $7 million, as their rainy day fund. They're on a continuous levy, and they don't want to have to go back to the taxpayers for 15 years. As we, would that money be better spent in providing additional sheriffs for the patrol? So the point I'm trying to make is that the people are already spending money for law enforcement in the crime lab, and maybe the crime lab, the prosecutor's office, may want to rethink that, and perhaps the money should be reduced from the taxpayers, and then the townships can go and to the taxpayer and say, we need more road patrol. We've given you credit, from the crime lab that you've been paying, but we really need to spend that money on the sheriffs and the number of people that are actually patrolling the street. So be very careful, because we're pricing seniors out of their homes if you continue to go through using property taxes. I'm just raising the alarm that we can't continue to do that. Thank you very much.
Again, I'm going to look to legal as I address this. Actually, sir, this is not a debate. I just want to address your statements. Even if the crime lab were taken to zero, that is a county-wide levy, those dollars could not be redirected to townships without a vote of the people. Individual townships putting on levies would not be drawing from the county in total, so the entire dollar amount captured would be only what that community is contributing based on their taxable values. So they are separate issues. I appreciate the sensitivity, and I've said previously, and I'll say it again, that people of Lake County are incredibly generous in supporting our law enforcement and other services. But that generosity has its limits, and I believe that's what you're expressing concern on. But again, looking to legal regarding the crime lab, yes, this Board of Commissioners is the, let's say, taxing authority, I believe is the proper language, but I would leave it in the hands of the prosecutor and his team as to the needs and the direction of that. That is 100% their area of authority. So there is a separation of powers there. Legal, could you expand on that, please?
Yes, Commissioner. As my chief has said, Mr. Hackman, the voters were presented by Mr. Colson straightforward a 15-year plan of what this levy would do and how long this levy would satisfy the needs of the Lake County Crime Lab. There are machines that are very, very expensive to purchase, and you have to plan for those types of improvements because we aren't talking $5,000 or $10,000 expenditure. We're talking a very significant expenditure, and if you don't have those funds to expend, and if you don't keep your certifications, you don't have a Lake County Crime Lab. Now, the voters took this information and decided they wanted to adopt this 15-year plan, and they did. And now to try and judge it on year 1 or year 2 or year 3 before you get to the downside where the income is not matching the outcome, this was a 15-year plan. And the prior levy, to note, was presented as a 15-year plan and lasted almost 20 years due to good fiscal stewardship of the funds. This is what the voters decided they wanted.
Thank you, sir. It seems Mr. Hackman always gets you at the meetings when we actually do a lot of talking here. Right? Does he like schedule these events? You know, we're going to have to tease him about that, right? Thank you, sir. All right, anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Anyone else? Very good. Madam Clerk, moving on to the first agenda item.
In the engineer's office, resolution authorizing change order number 1 for the LAK Chestnut Street County Road 329 resurfacing project contract with Roniak Paving Incorporated, decreasing the amount by $58,374.77. Lake County PID number 112483, federal aid number FAN E200 680, City of Painesville PID number 112476, LCE project number 2020-013.
Move to approve.
Second.
And boy, those sound like nuclear launch codes. All right, looking to engineer. This is always good when things come down, but how did you manage to get that much of a cost reduction?
So this is the first and final change order on this project before we finalize it. This was an adjustment of quantities for items that were not needed. So especially when working on a project that we're receiving funding through ODOT, you're always going to look for that worst case scenario. So we had quantities in for extra pavement repairs, full depth that were not necessary. Once they opened the road out, we're able to see what was needed.
And for that, again, this board says thank you. You are doing realistic estimates so that we're not getting surprised with change orders that go in the other direction.
Right.
And that is very much appreciated by this board. Gentlemen, anything else for the engineer?
That's great news. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Excellent, excellent. If there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Tyler.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Commissioner's office, resolution reappointing Lyle D. Shull to the Lake County Senior Citizen Advisory Panel for a 4-year term ending September 30th, 2026.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Tyler.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution declaring the intent of the Board of Lake County Commissioners to approve the vacation of .499 acre of River Road in Perry Township.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Our friends from Madison Township are saying, no. Inside joke, inside joke. Okay, if there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Tyler.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing execution of an agreement between the Lake County Board of Commissioners and Western Reserve Community Development Corporation for the fiscal year 2021 Community Development Block Grant Funds.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Any contribution on that one, Dave, or are you good with it on the face of it?
I'm good with it on the face. If you have questions, I'll answer them.
Gentlemen, anything? Very good, thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Tyler.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution accepting a grant and authorizing execution of a sub-grant award agreement as provided through the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, sub-grant number 2022 ARCLB 910 in the amount of $250,000 between the Lake County Board of Commissioners on behalf of the Lake County Crime Laboratory and the Office of Criminal Justice Services.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. President?
Sir.
I would just thank our prosecutor's office, emblematic of the work that all of our staff in the county does. I'd just like to thank them for working hard to get this external grant, which helps to fund the crime lab and lowers the burden on the taxpayer. It is something that we work hard across the county to do. We're very aggressive about applying for grants and bringing funding inside the county. So thank you to the prosecutor's office for this achievement.
And also, I appreciate Mr. DeLeon today. Thank you for being here. And he talked about expensive equipment. This is just one of those pieces that we were talking about. And just so everybody hears what it is, gas chromatograph, infrared spectrometer, mass spec instrument. So that's a lot of words. It's a very high-tech piece of equipment. It cost $250,000. So it's not cheap.
And the application of that is in the Controlled Substances Division. And by way of a little bit of history, our Lake County Crime Lab, not so many years ago, was one of the leading agencies identifying what we call analog drugs, which sadly enough, if there is an analog and it is not recognized as being an illicit substance, even though it's killing people, you can't prosecute for it. So I don't know, do you want to add to that, sir, while you're there? We can add to the minutes that you can show Mr. Hackman, like, hey, here's only afternoons I had to talk.
That was very well stated, Commissioner. And in fact, the drugs are scheduled in code. So if they aren't in the code and they aren't prohibited, they can't be prosecuted.
That's the one thing I noticed during my latest tour is how much that department in the crime lab has grown in the last 15 years. Out of necessity, unfortunately.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. If there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Tyler?
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchnik?
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck?
Yes.
In the Finance Department, resolution approving payment of bills as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $1,101,019.66.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Tyler?
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchnik?
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck?
Yes.
Resolution approving purchase orders as listed on the Commissioner's Purchase Order Approval Journal in the amount of $714,009.44.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Tyler?
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchnik?
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck?
Yes.
Resolution increasing appropriations of various non-general fund accounts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Tyler?
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchnik?
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck?
Yes.
Resolution transferring cash and appropriations within various general and non-general fund accounts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Tyler?
Yes.
Commissioner Pletchnik?
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck?
Yes. All right, very good. Moving on to departmental reports. Utilities.
Good morning, Commissioners. I was just going to take a moment to talk about one topic. I know we spend a lot of time talking about projects, so I was going to talk about the solid waste landfill a little bit and be as brief as possible. But in summary, I mean, the landfill continues to be a very popular and a very busy place. We're continuing to see an increase in the number of the transactions and the amount of material that were received. For example, this past August and continuing into September, we've broken records for the amount of material that's come in since the landfill's begun. Specifically, I know, again, you said you're a numbers person on some of the folks, but over the past handful of years, getting back to maybe 18 or 2019, we've seen anywhere from a 25% to a 28% increase in the operation there. The good news is we have plenty of space, we have the staff, we're planning for landfill expansion, so there's no alarm in terms of us running out of space. I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank our Director of Solid Waste, Tim Gurley, his staff that works there for navigating us through these difficult years and dealing with increased workload. And at this thing, again, in summary, everything's positive, acceptable, and it's been very busy, but they've done a great job, and I just wanted to thank them.
Well said, sir. Thank you. Anything else for the engineer? Or, I'm sorry, for the utilities? Very good. Moving on, Job and Family Services.
No report today, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. County Administrator. Jason.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Just very briefly, just a reminder that next Tuesday, the county and multiple agencies will be participating in our Perry Plant exercise. Trustee Gottner, you're welcome to join me at the JIC if you like. Probably the most important exercise that we do, notably every 8th year. It's, as I've noted, it's a HAB, hostile action-based training exercise. Probably the better part of a couple hundred officials throughout the county participating in that drill. Engineer, utilities, JFS, you name it, from county leadership, police, fire, and so on. So looking forward to that next Tuesday. Actually looking forward to getting through it and then moving on. So that'll occur next week. And then also just a brief update. We're on schedule regarding the public safety programming study. I'll be looking to get information to the commissioners probably in the next 7 to 10 days on where that program is looking. It'll coincide with the discussion that was had earlier, I'm assuming, so be on the lookout for that information as I continue to work with the sheriff, his team, probation, the courts, etc. Thank you.
Very good. Anything for our administrator? Thank you, sir. All right, Madam Clerk.
Yes, our next commissioners meeting is going to be next Thursday, September 29th at 10 a.m.
Thank you, ma'am. Legal.
No report, Commissioners.
There you go. Keep the tradition going. Thank you. All right. Do we have any old business coming from this board? Any old business? Hearing none. Moving on to new business. Do you have any new business?
Mr. President?
Sir.
A couple of items. First, our Lake County Recorder is with us today, and she provided us a copy of her new brochure for her Veteran Identification Card program. And it's certainly important for our veterans to know that when Recorder Lynch took over, she made a point of making her veterans ID cards 100% free. Previous administrations had charged for this benefit, but Recorder Lynch recognized the importance of serving our veterans, and so she made a point of making this 100% free. And speaking of services for our veterans, which is so important, because as Mr. Music has shared, without our military and our law enforcement, there is no country. I was really grateful to John Wormeling, the executive director of our Veterans Service office here in Lake County, for taking the time this past week to take me through his office and explain the many services that they provide to our veterans in Lake County, working hand in hand with AMVETS, our VFWs, and other veterans organizations. Just like our Veterans ID program, all the services that our Veterans Service Office provides are 100% free. And even though the law doesn't require it, John makes a point of only hiring veterans to his office to make sure that the people serving you understand your challenges, where you're coming from, and what your needs are. And this office provides a broad range of services, from emergency financial assistance for veterans in a number of different cases. So if you're in a terrible financial spot, there's a lot of flexibility on the part of our Veterans Service Office to serve and to help you. So please know that is available. But John himself is not just a veteran, but also a veteran lawyer. Because a big part of what our Veterans Office does is to assist veterans with their claims and their appeals. In fact, you can have your appeals heard by administrative law judges in the conference room right here in Lake County, rather than having to travel to some faraway location. They make a point of providing that right here so that you can win your benefits. And I was really excited to hear that our office wins the vast majority of cases and appeals for Lake County veterans. We have great staff who are dedicated to taking care of you. And if you think you're alone and there are no resources, I just want to make sure that folks are aware that every county has a Veterans Service Office, but Lake County has a very special one. So great thanks to them. And the last item I'd like to share in new business is another big thank you now to our Lake County captains, our minor league baseball team, for an amazing season. I think it's fair to say it's our second best season of all time. It's our second season as a high A affiliate of the Cleveland Indians, and we went to the championship game this year. We did not win the championship, but we are East Division Midwest League champs. We made it to the championship game. I know the commissioners have been to many games this season. Commissioner Tyler joined me for the second game of the championship series. It was really exciting for Lake County to be on that stage. and to see such incredible play right here for an affordable price for Lake County families. You know, it's one of the best and most affordable nights out that a family can have anywhere between here and Toledo. And, you know, once again, it takes an enormous amount of sacrifice and work on the part of the team, the players, the owner, and the community to get to this point. So a big congratulations to the captains on being Eastern Division champs, making it to the championship game, and having their second best season in history. It really was remarkable to see the championship run.
Well said. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Hearing none, moving on to our second public comment portion. Do we have anyone in the audience wishing? Yes, ma'am. Becky Lynch, Lake County Recorder.
Come on down.
Yeah.
Sorry, John. Did I take your spot?
Good morning, Commissioners. I wanted to say thank you for mentioning that, Commissioner Plechnik. I have extra brochures here if anyone wants them of our Veteran ID program. Gary, I did go to the landfill and dropped off some computers, and we paid to have them gladly. I think Mike dropped off 12 of them. So thank you for being able to open that up so we can do it anytime. Also, I just want to mention briefly, Veterans Day is November 11th, and National Association of Counties Veterans and Military Services Committee, which I sit on, is doing a beautiful Operation Green Light project. And I will have more information coming on that, but I would love to see our county, Lake County, Ohio, be one memorable National Association county that lights up our county green during the week of Veterans Day. So I already sent you some stuff, and I will follow up on that. Operation Green Light. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Sir.
John Music, 45 Coventry Drive, Painesville Township. Just one quick statement. You know, like I said as I left, I said, we cannot afford not to have law enforcement. And the thing about it is, I don't care. I mean, we're supposed to have limited government and so forth. I don't want our government to grow. And when governments grow, spending grows. And the thing about it is, we have to say, what is a priority? And remember, I've talked about SME, subject matter experts. What better expert do we have than our sheriff? Does he have enough people to do what he has to do? And I think, according to the Ohio Revised Code or our Constitution, maybe they're outdated. Maybe security wasn't as important as it is today. We have no idea what is happening. I mean, our borders are wide open. What, 107,000 people died from fentanyl last year, and you don't hear nothing in the media or nothing, you know. And there's a new drug out that's a lot more potent than that. And the thing about it is, how can we not afford to do this? And may it be at the state level or whatever, we've got to get our priorities straight. May it be making some changes of how you can spend tax dollars that are collected and so forth. But I do not see anything that's more important. And then, like Brian had said, we, the seniors, only have so much money. So it'd be nice to say, yeah, I'll give an extra $100 here or $200 over here. We only have so much money. So the next thing is to be better stewards of our taxpayer dollars. Pay for what we truly need, what not we want. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, as always. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Anyone else? All right. Moving on, we do have a request for executive session. The purpose will be personnel, collective bargaining. There will be no business to be conducted afterwards. I have a motion to adjourn for the reason so stated.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Tyler.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Thank you for joining us today. This meeting stands adjourned.